Hello and welcome to Keeping It Young podcast, conversations about marriage, family, and ministry life. I'm Dave.
And I'm Bethany.
And we are the Youngs.
We're so glad you've joined us for our November series about gratitude.
Absolutely, and happy Thanksgiving to you.
Yay, I'm so excited.
What an exciting week ahead of us here. We love celebrating Thanksgiving. If you have a unique tradition, we would love to hear about that. And that's just always interesting to hear how different people, celebrate Thanksgiving.
True.
Mm-hmm. And if you have any questions or comments about this situation or this topic of gratitude, we'd love to hear that as well. And of course, if you joined us last week, you're aware of the fact that we started in Colossians chapter 3 with the verses, above all these things put on charity, which is the bond of perfectness, and let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to the which also you're called in one body, and be ye thankful. And remember the triplicate we kept talking about. Paul puts together in the book of Colossians there in that chapter, he puts together these three truths. We're to love one another, we're to let God's peace rule in our hearts, and we are to learn to be thankful.
Yes.
And so we emphasized that pretty heavily last week as we talked about the question, does gratitude matter? And of course, it's all over the Psalms, it's all over the life of Jesus, it's all over Paul's letters to the church, and it is commanded frequently in the Bible that we're to love. And it's not just a spiritual matter. As we closed out last week, it is also a medical matter in a sense.
Right. It's physical, it's mental, emotional, it's relational. It's a wonderful thing. If we are thankful, it just makes everything better all the way around.
Absolutely. And so we answered the question last week, does gratitude matter? And in the time we have today, we just want to take a few moments and address the second question, and that is, how can we develop a grateful home? And I suppose any one of you that are listening, especially if Thanksgiving to you has a spiritual side to it as well, to where, you want to honor God in this Thanksgiving season. Maybe you're not a Christian, but you still listen to our podcast. This is important because even if you don't pursue Christianity, which we think you should, but even if you don't, gratitude is a wonderful way to live. And it just separates, the negativity and brings things that are positive. It separates, grouchiness and irritability and anger and resentment and frustrations and brings peace. And that is always, always a better way to live. So how do we develop a grateful home as we step into this week? How do we do it?
Well, first of all, I would say to you parents, you grandparents, we model gratitude by being heart thankful. Now, what do I mean by being heart thankful? Because gratitude is a heart matter and it is a choice. So moms and dads, sometimes we are expecting out of our small children, hey, you say thankful, you say thank you to grandma and grandpa, or you say thank you to Aunt so-and-so who brought whatever for you. But we don't model it ourselves. So if we're not modeling it, then it's going to be difficult for our children to model it. And it can be hard for us to model it if we don't know how to have it ourselves.
Absolutely. And even I was just sitting here thinking about, this in relation to the home. We've had a few opportunities in this week where we're recording this to spend some time with a young couple that we've known for a long time. I had the privilege of doing their wedding.
Right.
Beth and I did their premarital counseling. And Dr. Jeffrey and his wife have been coming to our services this week here in Tennessee. They live nearby, and he serves in a local hospital here as a spinal surgeon, I think, something of that sort. And they have a little girl. How old is their little one? Gracie
is 2.
She's just absolutely adorable. She's been sitting in the service with them, and she's so well behaved. And so last night as they were leaving, we'd been talking, and we were kind of the last ones in the building, and there was a man waiting to lock up. And so we're starting to depart the building, and our teenager's there. And so Hannah says to little Gracie, say thank you to Charity for playing with you. And she turned around and she did a sign, where she puts her hand on her mouth and she brings her, right. It looked like she was blowing her a kiss.
Yes.
And I thought, that's really a beautiful illustration. Here's a little girl. She's just very happy, but it is obvious that one of the things they're doing is training her to say thank you, to show gratitude. And it really does make a difference.
It does.
And here's this happy little girl that's learning to have a grateful heart.
But it had to start with Dr. Jeffrey and Hannah. They had to be modeling thankfulness in their home. They had to teach little Gracie how to do sign language for thank you. And so I'm sure that in Jeffrey and Hannah's life, it is something that they already practice. So that came more naturally to them.
Sure. And so here's some, just a good questions. Do you have a grateful heart? And how about it, mom and dad? You dads that are listening, do you have a grateful heart? Would you say, yes, I'm a very thankful, grateful person? How about it, you grandparents, grandfathers and grandmothers, grandpa, grandma, Papa, Nana, Mimi, whatever you guys are, Poppy.
Right.
Do you have a grateful heart? How about you teens that listen? We're glad all of you teens tune in and listen to the Keeping It Young. It always just is such a blessing to me that I meet so many teens that tune in and listen and that want a marriage and family like, their own someday. And
Right.
Or you singles, would you say that you have a grateful heart? And let's just review a couple of verses. We talked about them last week, but in case you missed it, the psalmist reminds us, "Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever." And we're reminded by Paul's writings, "In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you." And Paul even writes to Timothy, "I exhort therefore that first of all supplication, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men."
Right.
So gratitude is just extremely important here. How do we do it in our homes? How do we develop it? We have to model gratitude.
We do. And I think it begins with our gratefulness to God. How long has it been since you actually maybe sat down in your own quiet time with the Lord, or maybe just you're driving in the car, you're running errands, and you just have a little bit of quiet time? How long has it been since you have thought about all that God has done for you, whether it be in your personal salvation and giving his son to die on the cross for our sins? That is just amazing. As sinful and wicked and rotten as we are, as the song says, prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, as often as, even as Christians, we let our hearts wander away from God. He still sent his son to die for us, and he still loves us, and he gives us mercy and grace and goodness every day. There is so much to be thankful for.
Yeah, and you know what? Gratitude just produces this sense of wonder and awe, or what I like to call the wow. And it's when we are grateful to God for the fact that, hey, now we are believers, our sins are forgiven, we have eternal life, we have the peace of God.
Yes.
Some of you can look at your family right now, and you got little ones that are they're doing okay. They're happy, they're growing, they're maturing, they're learning things, and it's just really a wow. And that should be a gratitude in our heart that, wow, God, this is, look, our kids are doing well. Some of you have teenagers that really are very mature and they're growing. What a wow. So sitting down and having a grateful heart, just here we are in this Thanksgiving week. Take some time this week to model gratitude, but start with a gratitude towards God for the blessings that he's put in our lives.
Well, and if you're having a hard time being grateful, then probably you need to start with, okay, there doesn't seem to be a lot in my life that I can be grateful for right now, but there is always something that you can look for that God has done for you. Psalm 68:19 says, "Blessed be the Lord who daily loadeth us with benefits." I love that verse because daily he is just pouring his goodness and grace and mercy into our lives. We just need to look for it.
Yeah, Nancy DeMoss in her book, Choosing Gratitude, says, "I say we start by making it our goal to have a heart that's as grateful towards God as the abounding grace he has poured into our life. That ought to keep us grateful," she says, "for a long, long time."
Yes.
And she's right about that, isn't she? And no doubt about it. So we start with our gratefulness to God. All of us ought to pause this week and be grateful to God. We're modeling gratitude by being heart thankful. So be grateful to God. And also we model it in our gratefulness for our spouse, our family, and others.
Sometimes we take each other so for granted. It is a very sad thing when we can be grateful to the checkout lady at the grocery store and we can say thank you to her and happy Thanksgiving to her. And then on the way out the door with all of our children in tow, we're just like, I can't believe you. Let's go. Come on, get in the car. Help me load these groceries. No, don't help me load the groceries. Get in the car right now. And we just go from this happy little face to someone we don't even know. And we're all over the people in a negative way that we are supposed to love.
Yeah, and here's another quote. Anytime we focus on ourselves, even if it's on the good things we're doing, it keeps us from being grateful for what others are contributing. We lose our appreciation for our spouse, children, friends, and coworkers when we constantly view them through our own shadow. That's it's kind of a little bit on the heavy end there at the end.
It's so
But,
convicting.
What a powerful statement. There are some instigators of ingratitude, according to Choosing Gratitude. And what are those? She lists several.
She listed several in her books, and we won't take time to go over them in great detail. But if we're having unrealistic expectations, I think of this a lot during the holidays, ladies. We can have this expectation of my house is going to look like this, and my cookies are going to turn out like this, and dinner is going to be exactly like this, and my children will behave like this. But if we have unrealistic expectations, that can take away from our gratitude.
And my husband will do the dishes.
Well, he often does do the dishes, which is a wonderful thing, and I do say thank you.
And how about forgetfulness? That's another robber.
It is. Sometimes
it robs us of gratitude.
Someone will do something for us, and in the moment we're like, "Ooh, that was great," but we're in a busy mode, and we just keep going, and we forget to say thank you.
Entitlement is a big one.
It is, especially in our culture, and we're so quick to see it in the culture, and we forget to see it in our own homes.
Ooh, that's a little bit of a convicting statement right there. Easier to see it than others than in ourselves. Comparison really robs us of gratitude. How does that one work?
Well, there's so many opportunities for comparison these days, which I am grateful we did not have as a young couple. We did not have social media when we first started having children. And so I had no idea that your husband took you on an amazing vacation. And I had no idea that you got to go on this certain date, or that you had this for dinner, or that you got new clothes or anything. I had no idea. And I love that. But in this time, not only can we see it in people that we know and love, you get to church and you're like, oh, she has a new dress. It's not even that. It's like people we don't even know, Instagram influencers and other influencers across social media are bombarding us with, this is how you should look. This is how your house should look. This is how your family should look. This is how your family should be. And there is such a burden to think, well, I can never live up to that. And you know what, girls, we don't need that. Guys, you don't need that pressure either. You need to do what God has called you to do. You need to work on your family the way God has called you to work on your family. You need to enjoy the house and home that He has given you, whether it is gorgeous and is Pinterest worthy, could you say, or Instagram worthy, or whether it is very humble and that's all you can afford right now, but it is safe and it is warm and it is comfortable for you and your family. We can be grateful.
And I would, just maybe venture here to you men that are listening. Sometimes during a season like Thanksgiving, if your wife is one of those who is servant-minded and she's preparing meals and she's done the shopping and there's a lot of cooking and all this going on, sometimes I hear men, they'll be frustrated about that. And so, your wife is busy and she's going to be tired, and there's a lot of demand as far as she does have this desire, many ladies, to have their, the house look a certain way as guests are coming in. And if, gentlemen, if you allow things like that to be frustrating, rather than to evidence gratitude for that, gratitude just changes the whole perspective. Mm-hmm. So if something is happening and we as men, we're like, rolling our eyes and sighing or joking about it with our buddies, rather than saying, isn't this wonderful? Man, I'm so thankful for the work you're doing and the effort you're putting in. I'm so thankful our house looks beautiful. I'm so thankful that my wife cares about the house and wants everything to look so well. Gratitude puts everything in a nicer and happier perspective.
Yes.
And so what are we doing? We're talking about, you have to model. If you want to have a grateful family, you have to model gratitude. You have to look for ways to show it, to say it, to demonstrate it, to illustrate it. Mm-hmm. And you just have to choose it. You have to choose to be grateful.
Yes, and you just need to be very careful about those things. Unrealistic expectations, forgetfulness, entitlement, comparison. Another one is blindness to God's grace on us and on others. And we just talked about that. Sometimes we can just forget what God has given to us.
And you know what, there's a chance of being grateful just in those things that we kind of take for granted, even things that are like stressful or busyness, difficulties, challenges. One of the things that is unique to Christianity is that we can have a grateful heart for the things that our world detests and considers negative.
Right.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
For instance, And I'm thinking again, during this holiday season, the Thanksgiving season and Christmas season, we can get stressed out by all the work that is done. And David just alluded to that, where men need to be thankful. But if we can have a grateful heart during stressful and busy times, that is a wonderful thing. In her book, Choosing Gratitude, Nancy DeMoss Wolgemuth says, "Have you thought about being thankful for what I call the blessing of meaningful work? I realize some of that work may seem monotonous, menial, or meaningless. For every exhilarating responsibility I enjoy," she says, "it seems there are 10 or more that take sheer discipline to perform and for which there is no obvious or immediate reward. Those tasks may leave you exhausted at the end of the day. For sure, every calling has its challenges that keep us humble and dependent on Him. In the midst of relentless ministry deadlines and seemingly endless tasks, and can I say, or maybe in the midst of Thanksgiving preparation, I find that the burden of my workload is lightened when I approach it as a high and holy calling, a gift to be received with gratitude." And the world never thinks of it that way. Our world is so accustomed these days to, let's just get this work done so I actually can get to my real life, which is scrolling media or binge watching something on Netflix or relaxing with my friends. But God has given us a gift of work, and we need to be grateful that we can do it.
Yeah, we should probably also pause here a moment and just address those of you that the Thanksgiving season, the holiday seasons are challenging because of pain, because of difficulties, because of loss. I was just thinking just this week of several friends we have over the last year or two that have lost young members of their family.
Right.
And we have several friends who just even in recent weeks have had a son pass away. And we have other friends in the last, 19, 20 months have had a son pass away. And we're talking about, college age kids or young adults, things that just, this is not how, life's not supposed to be like this.
Right.
But the thing that does get us through is rather than allowing our sorrow to leave us in a state of depression and discouragement, we can find gratitude. And that sounds so weird to say in the culture we live in.
Right.
But to stop and be thankful for the privilege that we had with our children, to be thankful for the privilege we have in knowing our God, that this is not the end of the story.
Right.
That we will see them again. We always enjoyed the times that we did get to spend, like with your mom and dad.
Right.
But your mom and dad, mom had so many traditions that she influenced us with. But mom and dad are in heaven. We'll never get to celebrate Thanksgiving here with them ever again.
Right.
But the story's not over. And while we would love to have them back with us, they would not want to come back because the peace, the joy they know in living with God in eternity and knowing that we're going to get to join them in the years to come somewhere along the way, no matter what difficulty is going on in your life. Some of you perhaps may just be going through just a very severe battle with maybe cancer. And this is not a, jump up and down happy time.
Right.
But Paul writes about things like that to a believer, and he says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you enter into divers temptations, testings, and challenges and difficulties." And he points out that, well, God's at work even in that, because let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. So some of you have, you're raising little ones this week. Well, you have to model gratitude because busyness can really destroy your gratitude. But some of you, the week ahead for you is pain. And there's a lot of sorrow in your heart and heaviness and some grief. There'll be some tears in the midst of this holiday season. You may not even want to, and you may even feel a little awkward about them at times. But you're carrying a heavy load. You're carrying a heavy burden. And maybe physically you're struggling and, it's just going to be all you can do to sit at a table and eat a meal because of your health. But whatever the situation in our life is, what the Bible's teaching us is gratitude makes the difference in whether we are able to enjoy or whether we lose the joy.
Right.
And so it's just a wonderful, wonderful reminder. We have to model gratitude in our family if we're going to enjoy this Thanksgiving season.
Right. And we start with our gratitude to God, our gratitude to those around us, and by even exhibiting gratitude in those stressful, busy, or difficult or painful times. So moving on, though, we don't just model gratitude, we actually need to express it.
We have to express gratitude. And what a wonderful, wonderful thing. Just expressing it just shows up in being aware of each other and having a happy heart and encouraging each other, speaking to each other and saying thank you and, just being mindful of how can I be a blessing. Gratitude is one of those things it's not just a matter of thank you. Gratitude is this lifestyle of just living your life in wonder and awe and being overwhelmed at the goodness of God and being aware of others and how can I encourage them and how can I strengthen them. It's a wonderful way to enter into this holiday season with a desire. I'm going to model it, but I'm going to express it as well.
Yes. So it actually has to come out of your heart. So it starts in your heart. It's a heart matter. You have to choose it in your heart. You have to constantly recalibrate your heart to choose gratitude instead of grumbling or instead of complaining or criticizing. And so one of the first ways I would say that you express it is actually smile it, which sounds weird to say, smile Thanksgiving. But if you have a grateful heart, it will come out on your face. On the other hand, if you're like me, where everything that's going on in my mind and heart shows up on my face, if you're not very grateful, you will not have a happy face. You will not smile. My little 16-year-old Charity, I called her little. She would probably be so embarrassed by that. But my daughter, Charity, our daughter.
She would protest that.
She would. She is a good reminder for me because she will say, Mom, you need to use your indoor face, which means you need to fix your face right now because you're in public and people will be wondering what is going on in your heart. So ladies, if you're having a hard time smiling on Thanksgiving Day because there is so much to do, then maybe give yourself just a moment to remind yourself what you can be grateful for.
A grateful heart makes a happy heart, and a happy heart makes for a happy face.
Yes.
And so what a good reminder there. I just like that. That's so simple. Smile it. And so this season, moms and dads, smile at your children. And you young people, smile at your parents. And spouses, smile at each other.
Yes.
And when you're in the store and people are uptight, smile at each other. Smile, smile, smile.
Yes. And girls, can I say, if you're having a hard time smiling because something's going wrong, maybe something is burning or something's overflowing on the stove or whatever it is, then just get help. Instead of looking at everyone in a mad or overwhelmed or stressed way and just wishing in your heart someone would come help you, then maybe ask the Lord to ask you for you to verbalize this nicely, but just say, hey, could I have someone come help me? And sharing the load will help put a smile back on your face.
All right. So the first thing we do is we smile it. We're going to wind up here now. The second thing is we say it.
Yes. Say it.
Smile it. Say it.
Say it often. Say it aloud. I love this quote from the book, Choosing Gratitude. Silent gratitude isn't much use to anyone. Gladys Stearns said that, and Nancy DeMoss Wolgemuth quoted her, but that is so true. You can think, oh, that was wonderful for them to do, but if you haven't expressed it, then you haven't told them that you're thankful to them and they have no idea.
Share with our audience the story about the farmer in Vermont. I thought that was a great story.
I love this. This is from the book Choosing Gratitude also. A Vermont farmer who was sitting on his porch with his wife of 48 years, just beginning to realize what a great partner and help she had been to him all these years and how much she meant to him. He turned to her and he said, "Wife, you've been such a wonderful woman that there are times I can hardly keep from telling you."
That's hilarious, but that's also kind of sad.
It is sad, but sadly, we have met people like that who are like, well, yeah, she's great. Do you ever tell her? Well, she knows that I think she's great.
Hey, what a good place to pause here and just apply it to you that are listening. When's the last time you have said it in a very meaningful and personal way?
Right.
Gratitude, said gratitude. Husbands, how are you doing there? Wives, how are you doing? You younger people, how are you doing? Do you say it? When's the last time you really expressed gratitude in a meaningful and on purpose way? Mm-hmm. That's a good place just to stop for a moment and let us think that through, because we should smile it. That'll show up on our face if we're happy, if we have a grateful heart, but we should say it. And this is a good week just to say it. And you added another one here in the notes. What's the other one? Smile it, say it.
Write it.
And write it.
Yes.
And what a good reminder there. Thank you notes for gifts, for helps, or for just because.
Yes, just
It's
writing
wonderful.
a note to say, hey, I am thankful for you. And we have this wonderful technology. Now, I am all for handwritten thank you notes. I know that they have gone a little bit out of fashion. I'm not sure why. And I think we should bring it back. Girls, teach your children how to write thank you notes. Guys, you can write thank you notes too. There are so many things that people do for us, and it's a wonderful thing just to sit down and jot a quick note. But we also have texting, or we have messaging, or we have email. And over the holiday season, if you're not going to be with those people that you love so much, maybe you should reach out to them and say, hey, I am grateful for you, and I know we can't be together today, but I want you to know I'm thinking of you and I am thankful for you.
Such a simple but powerful tool God has given us.
Yes.
To smile, to say it, to write it. There's even another one. We had one final point here in the text,
Right.
in our notes. Not the text, but in the notes. We shouldn't just smile it, say it, and write it, but we should encourage family and corporate expressions of it.
Yes.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, I know often when we're sitting around our table, not just at Thanksgiving, we can be just sitting in a weeknight meal. David will say to our children, hey, what are you thankful for? And it's such an encouraging time. There can even be times in my heart, I'm like, why are we going to be grateful right now? I don't want to be grateful. But I know that I need that exercise.
Hey, tell us more there. That's
it. No, that's a different episode for a different time. But encouraging it with your children. I know sometimes moms, you think, will they ever get it? Will I have to say all of the time, say thank you, say thank you, say thank you? Well, just encourage it when you're sitting around the table, especially at Thanksgiving dinner. Take some time to go around the table and say, hey, let's just say one thing we're thankful for, and maybe even specify. Say, tell us something that God has done for you this year that you're thankful for. Tell us something that has happened in your life that you're thankful for this year. Tell us something that someone else has done for you this year that you're thankful for. And just encourage it within your own home. But I would say even just encourage it corporately within your church. Sometimes in our culture, we can get so insular in our churches, and we can just think, everybody out there in the culture is just wicked and horrible, and we're just going to stay in here and we're going to close in, and we're not very grateful. It just gives us a discouragement instead of encouragement. So encourage it in your church. Encourage your children when they go to church. Hey, we need to be grateful to God. And during the worship time, this is turning our hearts towards gratefulness to what God has done for us.
So, dear friends, we're out of time on this particular episode, but I hope you've enjoyed just these 2 weeks of our just talking about gratitude. And it is a wonderful season that our country has set aside that we get to celebrate Thanksgiving as a nation. Let's not forget God during this Thanksgiving. Have a grateful heart. Let's not forget each other. Just express gratitude. Maybe sit down and send a text or a note to some people just to let them know how grateful you are for them. And take time at the table this week. Take time to maybe go around the table and just share, what's going on in our hearts. How has God been good to us this year? And gratitude will make a huge difference and is always worth it and is a wonderful thing. Any final thought, my love?
I think we've covered it well. I hope you all have a wonderful, warm Thanksgiving, and that it is just truly a time of gratefulness in your hearts for what the Lord has done, for your time together. And if you are having a hard time and you just need somebody to pray for you, send us a message and we certainly will lift you up in prayer.
Yes, we would be thrilled to do that. Well, happy Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful week ahead. We look forward to joining you next week as we have a brand new series. And we are shortly heading right here into the Christmas season. We'll have several episodes to help celebrate Christmas. It's going to be a great rest of the year. I hope you're looking forward to it. Happy Thanksgiving. Remember this week to serve the Lord with gladness.
The Keeping It Young podcast is a Bax 5 Media production.